Good morning, everybody. I know that we've started about 10 minutes late. Sorry about that. We had some connectivity issues, as happens when you are working with technology. But to all of you who are with me this morning, a very, very warm welcome. I'm Nikki Bush, human potential and parenting expert, and I'm really privileged to be spending time with you this morning on SimplyBiz. I know that anybody who's on this webinar is an entrepreneur or a business owner just like me. And just like me, you're having to pivot, you're having to rally, you're having to do whatever it takes right now to keep your business going during this very strange, unpredictable, and disruptive time that we're facing during COVID-19. I'm going to be presenting a webinar for you this morning called Reframing COVID-19 to Win at Work and Life for You and Your Family. And I know right now that you're challenged to the limit, both personally and professionally, because right now, most of you are working from home, unless you're an essential service, and many of you, I'm assuming most of you who are actually on this webinar, have children and you're trying to cope with them 24/7 and remote schooling them too. Before I go any further, just to remind you how this webinar platform works, there is a chat feature and you're welcome to drop me some questions, comments in the chat feature. We're going to be running 2 polls this morning, and when we do, if you could please just answer that poll as quickly as you can. It's totally anonymous, but it does give me an idea as to where you are at right now. And you can actually also decide on what size screen you want. So there is a little diagonal arrow like that in the black toolbar just above my face right now. When I start sharing some slides, and there aren't a lot of them, but you can decide how big you want to display my face and how big you want to display the actual slide. So that's the button that you need to press in order to decide on your preference. And that saves me from having to get in and out of my presentation. And then there is a little arrow that points to the right-hand side, and that will expand or collapse the little toolbar with chat, questions, and polls for you. So those are the 2 things that you need to know about that toolbar. And I'm going to be sharing some resources with you at the end of this webinar so that you can download them and make use of them well after the webinar. Right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen at this point so that you can see my slides. Remember that you, hello, Sunaina, what a lovely name. I'm very excited to be here with you too. So I see that there are a few comments. So yes, let me know that you're there, guys. I can't see you. And as much as I would love to see you, this is just, one of the limitations of doing webinars. It's completely different to being in the room with you. So I would love you to send me some comments on the chat. Right, so thank you, Paula. Oh, Paula, my goodness, I know who you are. How lovely to have you online. And I hope you're coping in the UK. Right, okay. There we go. Right, so let me kick off with reframing COVID-19 to win at work and life. And I think this is a really apt slide to start off with. So this is a Johnny Walker Keep Walking advertisement. In fact, they have some amazing ads that you should go and have a look at online. But why I've chosen this image is because I think it's very reflective of how we are all feeling right now. And life is a bit of a maze, and the line before the maze on the left-hand side is before COVID-19. We are now in the thick of COVID-19, and then there's the line after COVID-19. But let's be realistic. We need to understand that we are going to be in this maze for quite a long time, anywhere between the next 9 and 18 months. We're going to be fighting our way through this maze, trying to find a new normal as we learn how to work remotely, many of us as we learn how to adapt our businesses and how to work with our children in our homes 24/7. My message to you is that we need to be a little kind to ourselves right now. We are not there yet. In another 3 or 4 months' time, when you and I have this conversation again, we will have sharpened our saw. We will have created new skills, learned new things, and we'll be getting really good at working remotely. We will have pivoted our businesses. We would have found our feet again in some way, shape, or form. We really don't know for sure what that looks like right now. But I want to say to you, we are not there yet. We are in a tumble dryer of emotions. We don't actually have control of everything out there right now. We kind of feel like life is happening to us and we're having to respond and we're not sure what the future looks like. So things are rather challenging right now. We find ourselves in the thick of this maze and it doesn't feel comfortable because we've never been here before. So before I go any further, I would like to run a poll to find out how you are feeling right now. I want to test your emotional temperature. This gives me some insight into you as an audience. And I want you to answer, pick an answer. Which statement most accurately reflects how you are feeling right now? Are you feeling overwhelmed and confused? Are you feeling fearful and anxious? Or are you feeling positive about future possibilities? And many of us are feeling very positive about future possibilities. This is totally anonymous. We won't know who you are. So please be completely honest. And it's really okay if you're feeling overwhelmed and confused and fearful and anxious. I would like to know how you are feeling right now. So you have to click on the poll and you have to submit your vote. So go into the white area that's got the chat, the questions, and the polls, and please go to the poll and submit your vote. Brent, is everybody managing to find the poll? Guys, if you can answer the poll, not in the chat, that would be helpful. So click on the poll. It's the third one along. So you have chat, then questions, then polls. Okay, right. So we have a result here, which I'll share with you. And it looks like this. We have 27% feeling overwhelmed and confused. We have, 25%, that's just changed. And 17% feeling fearful and anxious. And we have 58% feeling positive about future possibilities. Well, I have to tell you guys that that is a new record. Most of my audiences at this point, when they answer this poll, it's about a third, a third, a third. I've never had such a high score on are you feeling positive about future possibilities before. And I've been running these webinars for the last 5 or 6 weeks. So that tells me that you're entrepreneurs, that you are nimble and flexible and responsive. That is the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You probably don't have 6,000 employees that you have to organize to work from home. I'm not saying that all of you have small businesses, but I think what happens when you are an entrepreneur and you own your own business, you get to call the shots and you can change your strategy much quicker than a very, very large corporate organization. So I would say right now that that is a very, very positive sign for me. Going back to sharing my slides. Okay. Right, so having answered that, I'd like to take you through some frameworks for reframing COVID-19. You see, I believe that our mindset and how we choose to think about things is the thing that changes our future trajectory. And right now, we are having to get comfortable with not knowing. This is a very uncomfortable space to be in. I really get it. I know this space all too well. I want to share my first story with you, and this is about something that happened to me the week before lockdown. I was traveling between Pietermaritzburg and Hilton one evening. I'd just given a talk down in Pietermaritzburg, and if any of you know that area going up into the hills of Hilton, at night a mist descends. Now, I hadn't visited that part of the world for quite some time, and I'd clean forgotten how thick that mist can be. And I didn't drive back from Maritzburg to Hilton along the motorway. I drove up the old road. That was the way Waze took me, because it was probably the quickest, shortest route. And I got halfway up the hill, and this bank of mist just came down. Now, this was at about 8:45, 9 o'clock at night. And I couldn't see the wood for the trees. It was just white. It was like a white out. I couldn't see beyond the bonnet of my car. And I absolutely froze. And I thought, I cannot continue driving to find my B&B. I have to pull over. And even pulling over was hard. I couldn't see the edge of the road. Anyway, I eventually managed to pull over. I had my hazard lights on. And a car pulled up about 60 seconds later with hazards on, and a woman jumped out and came to my window. And would you believe that she was the very same woman who had just organized the talk down in Pietermaritzburg? Ordinarily, she wouldn't have driven that road. Why she was driving it, we don't know. But she said to me, Nikki, don't worry. I will guide you back to your B&B. Well, I was so relieved, I can't tell you, because there's no way I would have found my way back to where I needed to go. And she just had appeared like an angel out of the mist and offered to be my guide to drive me home. So I'm offering to be your guide this morning, to journey with you a while. And I hope that the resources I'm going to leave you and the frameworks I'm going to leave with you are going to help you to find your way through the mists of COVID-19. So, how does this story pan out? So there I am, following her up this windy hill in the thick mist, and she's going about 30 k's an hour, and I start to cry. No, I don't start to cry. Let me be honest. I'm sobbing. I am sobbing from the bottom of my soul. And why am I sobbing? Because the feelings coming up for me as I'm driving through the mist, following her, are the very same feelings that I experienced 2.5 years ago after my husband was tragically murdered in our home during a home invasion. The feelings that came up for me in the car that were the same as I had felt before, so I was being triggered, were feelings of fearfulness, feelings of being out of control, and feelings of not knowing where I was going, of what the future held, feeling like I had had choices taken away from me. So this was triggering a very, very sore, deep wound that I have worked very hard, not to overcome, because one doesn't overcome these things, but to absorb over time and come to terms with. And I'm sobbing. My face is just dripping with tears. She gets me right to the gate of this B&B. In fact, she drives me in. You won't believe it. I said to her, I've climbed out of my car and literally fell into her arms, still sobbing. Fortunately, she knew my story, so she understood that I'd been triggered. And I said, well, how come you had the remote control for the gate of this B&B? And she says, I actually used to live here. It was my home. My ex-husband now lives here with his new wife. I mean, what were the chances that she was taking me back to a place she knew? So I'm just saying to you this morning that I am holding your hand this morning, because this terrain of not knowing where we are and where we're going is very familiar to me. I have walked this path for the last 2.5 years. Those first 24 months after my husband died, even though I was having to get up every day and work every day and create a new normal, I woke up every day not knowing what today would bring, because I had never been here before, just as you have never been here before. So let's make sure we acknowledge that right now. And my next little story is also something that I think is very practical and useful for you right now. We got to the end of the wake. So after my husband's funeral, we had a wake that evening for our nearest and dearest. And at 10 o'clock that night, everybody started to disperse, as you would expect. And it was at that point that I really started feeling very emotional. And I burst into tears. And a friend of mine was standing next to me, and here's another bit of serendipity. She was also a psychologist. And she said, what's going on for you, Nikki? And I said, well, this moment feels like a full stop for me, like the end of everything I know. And I don't know what tomorrow holds. And the next day was a Sunday. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I have no idea what it looks like. And for me, I'm a visionary. I don't just have plans for today or for tomorrow, but for the next few months, the next few years. I've got a vision for how life is going to unfold. And I've been thrown such a curved ball. Suddenly, it was all out of my control. And it just really showed me that we really don't have control. It is an illusion. The only thing we can control is our choice and our attitude in every single moment. And that is as true for you today as it was for me back then. So this is a really, really good analogy. She said to me, why don't you reframe this full stop as a comma, as a pause, as on your way, not in your way? But she added something else, and this is what is very, very important. She added in, it's a comma and dot, dot, dot. And the dots are the future that you are going to create for yourself. So I invite all of you on this webinar this morning to see what you're considering maybe as a full stop, this COVID-19, as the end, as a comma. Can you reframe it as a comma and dot, dot, dot? And those dots, it's your responsibility to go and create and reinvent life during and after COVID-19. Nobody else can do this for you. We can throw our hands up and we can say, oh, it's happened to us, and be victims of circumstance. Or we can say, I can choose my attitude. I have choice. I have power in my choice every single moment. You know, I was doing aren't you happy now that you can actually walk in a straight line outside of your home and not just in little circles? Now, I'm living in a very small place. I used to have a big home with a big garden, and now I'm renting a small place. And I was doing my steps when we could only exercise at home. And I have exactly 20 paces up and down my backyard. My full route around my house, inside and outside my house, is 100 paces. But there I was having a very down day, as we do, because actually, guys, we are going through mass loss and trauma right now. We are grieving for lost freedom. We are grieving for lost autonomy. We are grieving for the loss of our ability to have freedom of choice. And I was doing the pacing up and down. And I think it was just after we'd had our lockdown extended for another 2 weeks. And I was down. But the more I walked, the more I realized how important self-talk is for all of us right now. And I started saying to myself, if Nelson Mandela or if Viktor Frankl, who both were incarcerated for years in concentration camps, or Robben Island in Nelson Mandela's case, if they could get through what they got through and thrive, so can I. So I pose that to you. How can you choose to thrive through COVID-19 and beyond COVID-19? Nobody else is going to be able to do this for you but you. And I know this is scary, guys. In fact, I will be really honest with you that moment at my husband's wake, when I felt like my life was at an end, that this was a really hard full stop, that moment was more scary for me than finding his dead body. And that may sound really bizarre, but when I found his body, I knew what had to happen next. You know, you build up for a funeral. We know what has to happen next. As shocked as we were, there was a process. With COVID-19, we don't know what the process is because none of us have ever been here before, and it's a moving target. So do not get stuck on dates. Do not get stuck on deadlines. We have to be fluid. We have to go with the flow here and make the best possible choices that we can every step of the way. And then I have an exercise for you. Point number 3 says collateral damage versus collateral beauty. Now, I did this exercise about 9 months after my husband's death, when I had to stand up for the first time and give a talk for Women's Day about what we had been through. And I actually got quite angry when I was putting this talk together and wondered why on earth I'd accepted the speaking engagement, until I realized that people want to hear stories of hope and how you survived and what were the tools that you used. Needless to say, it put me in a real state. I mean, I really relived everything because it was the first time I was having to kind of put what happened to us, a very non-linear event, into a very linear process of presenting a talk. And I was sitting in bed on a Sunday morning, and I thought, what is good about this that I can share? In fact, there's so much collateral damage from this event in our lives. So I folded a piece of paper in half and I wrote collateral damage on the left-hand side and collateral beauty on the right-hand side, because I wanted to do a test to see if there was anything beautiful that I could write about, that I could speak about. And I started writing on the left-hand side, collateral damage, every last little bit of anything I could think of, a feeling, an emotion, something that had happened to us, what we'd lost, you know, everything. From the fact that my children had lost their father, I would never be a grandparent with my husband, everything. It was stream of consciousness as fast as I could write, and it went on for 2.5 pages. And then I got to a point where I couldn't write anymore. So I started writing on the other side. And I thought, oh, I'll come back to the collateral damage. And I started writing on the collateral beauty side. And I got the most incredible surprise of my life. And it was a pivotal point in my healing. I wrote not 1 page, not 2 pages, not 3 pages of collateral beauty, but 5 pages of collateral beauty. Who knew that there were so many gifts, blessings, opportunities, and possibilities, sparks rising out of the ashes of something just too horrendous for words? I was going into a radio interview not long ago about COVID-19, and I decided to do the same process, the collateral damage, collateral beauty process, before I went on air. And you know, in 10 minutes, I was able to very quickly jot down 10 things on the collateral damage side, and believe it or not, twice as many things on the collateral beauty side for COVID-19. So I'm charging you today, as soon as you can after this webinar, I want you to go and do this collateral damage versus collateral beauty exercise. I'm going to share a link with you to a page on my website where you can go and read more about it, the background of it, and go and see what I wrote on my page for COVID-19, the beginnings of my list. I've since gone back and added to it. But this exercise is going to help you to keep perspective. And keeping perspective at this time is all important, because when we are in a panic, when fear completely overwhelms us, what happens is that we have an amygdala hijack in our brains. We go into emotional overload and we panic, or we become paralyzed. We go into fight, flight, or freeze. And when you're in that situation, there is nothing that you can do to help yourself or help your family. You need to be able to sidestep the melodrama in some way, not to ignore your feelings. And that's why the collateral damage versus collateral beauty exercise is so important. You're not ignoring the feelings. You're going there. You're going to the negative place. You are visiting it. You are acknowledging it. You are labeling it. You are experiencing it. We are all experiencing fear and panic and loss and trauma. And go and think of 20 different emotions that you've been through. Disappointment. You're being challenged. You're depressed. All of those things are very real for all of us. Make sure that you write all of those things down. You can write down the fact that your child's birthday was held in lockdown. There was no party. Your children are missing their friends. There's so much to write. And then I want you to make sure you go and write in that right-hand column all of the possibilities. Can you see me? Okay, am I back? Right, hello everybody. I'm just saying goodbye to Brent, who's on the back end on the technical side. I believe you lost me for a few seconds there. Right, so he got hold of me. There shouldn't be anything massive that you've lost. Okay, right. Okay, can you all see me again? Please give me a yes. Right, back up now. Good. And you heard me talking about the collateral damage versus collateral beauty exercise. Did you hear me talking about the fact that one of the biggest blessings of COVID-19 has been the fact that my children and I have been able to spend lots of quality time together, and we're knitting back together as a family. So I'm going to flip into I'm actually going to stay on screen here so that I can see what's going on, just in case we have a dip again. So I was saying, just as Brent phoned me, that this time of trauma is actually an amazing time for self-mastery. And the reason is that when you are traumatized, if you can stay conscious through your trauma, you're actually learning at about 200% faster than you would ordinarily learn. So the key is self-awareness. So self-awareness, being conscious of what we are going through, and actually being open to what we might learn. So the first thing I'd like to say is, I know, because I'm also an entrepreneur and a business owner, that we're all working, possibly it feels like harder than normal, longer than normal. And it's a very, very strange thing, because our hours seem to be longer because our work and our life is blending, because we're doing everything in the same space. Plus, if you're a parent, you've got the added responsibility of looking after your children at this time and managing their schoolwork as well, which is no small feat. If you've been a full-time working parent, you have been parenting for 2 to 3 hours of awake time a day, and you are now parenting for 12 hours of awake time every day. So the thing about time is, it's all about perception. So even though I feel that my days are very long, a 12 to 15 hour work day, I also feel things have slowed down to some degree. And that's because we're not rushing from one place to another. By the same token, we also don't have recovery time. I think we didn't ever understand that by getting in our car and going from meeting to meeting, our brains had an opportunity to recover, to process what had happened at the previous meeting, and just to muse on things. So we're lacking in recovery time at the moment. We need to put more time in between Zoom meetings or online meetings. We tend not to do that because we think that, we're here, we might as well just make use of our time, but we do need recovery time. So take the opportunity of time slowing down a little bit to observe yourself, to observe your children, especially if you haven't spent a lot of time with them before. This is an opportunity. We also need to keep perspective, and that's why that collateral damage, collateral beauty exercise is so important for you to go and do, and to be realistic. Now, I don't know how old your children are, and you're welcome to put the ages of your children in the chat box right now so that I can see. But I want to give you a little window of advice about working at home with children. And I'm going to send you a link to my Keep Your Business Running white paper, which is all about how to keep your business running while you have children at home. Because I think people just are not understanding that if you have children under the age of 7, between birth and the age of 7, they're going to need you every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. A baby's going to need you all the time unless they're sleeping. If you've got children who are from about age 10 and up, that's when online learning becomes easier. Your children are more au fait with technology, and they can do stuff by themselves. You can set them up and they can run with it. But under the age of 10, a child in primary school between 6 and 10 is going to need you every 10 or 15 minutes to guide them. You are not their teacher, but you are their guide alongside. Here's a little bit of insight for you. Your children are born with 1.5 minutes concentration for every year of their life. That is not a lot of time. The only reason why a child by grade 1 can concentrate for 20 to 30 minutes at a time is because they've had adult supervision helping them to push the limits to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes, etc. And our children have also got very used to adults telling them what to do, being in adult-directed activities, whether it be at school, whether it be in extramural activities or aftercare or at home. There's always an adult telling them what to do. And right now, they are also in a traumatic situation where their teachers have been ripped away from them. Their school has been ripped away from them. Everything that's predictable has been taken away. We need to understand that they will be more needy of us right now. So we are all experiencing these emotions that run interference between our productivity, between our children's ability to actually learn right now. All of these emotions create this kind of interference. So the best thing I can say to you right now is that you need to manage your own anxiety in order to help your children manage theirs. In fact, there's nothing more infectious than parental anxiety. It's way more infectious than the coronavirus. I can promise you that. So at this time, relationships are all important. Relationships before teaching. What we need to come out of COVID-19 with is intact relationships. And I promise you that if you've got some relationship issues right now, those relationships are going to be pushed to the limit. You are going to have to deal with your baggage. And this is as good a time as any. Get yourself a coach. Get yourself a counselor. If you've got an employee assistance program, use it. Identify what it is that you're working through, who you're working through it with, and get it done. Use this period of time to heal. This is not the time to be making big decisions of selling your home or shutting down businesses if you don't have to, or getting divorced. We are in a state of flux and change. So we need to keep things as consistent as possible from our side of things. And I know that it's going to push a lot of people's buttons right now, whether it's a relationship with a child or a partner or a spouse, even business partnerships are going to take strain over this time. But be realistic. We need to be asking our employees and our team members, how are you doing? And we need to be vulnerable and share how we are doing too, because we're actually all in the same storm. We're not necessarily in the same boat, but we're all in the same storm. And I'm finding people are being a lot more real these days. Even top executives and directors of big corporates are bearing their heart and soul right now, because we really are quite raw. But being vulnerable actually makes us human. So find out, in terms of your team members, how many children do they have at home? How old are those children? Do they have another adult at home who can help them with their children while they have online meetings, etc.? All of this is vital information that you need to have in order to have realistic expectations of your team. And I'm not saying that you must allow them to be victims of the situation. But if you want to empower your team to make the best possible decisions that they can to help themselves right now, best you know their situation and circumstances. And in that white paper, there's a whole section on how to empower your team, not to minimize them and treat them as victims, but to empower them and build their resilience muscle. And, you can say to people, I know you didn't expect this. I know you would never have chosen this, but I think you can handle it, and I'll help you. People just really want to feel held right now energetically. They need for us to give them a sense of calm. And I know that's tough, even when you're not feeling calm, but just understand your responsibility right now lies in your attitude and in your choices. And change, COVID-19 is a catalyst for change. We don't actually choose change by choice. I think entrepreneurs choose change more than most other people. We get quite comfortable with change, which is why that score was so interesting right up at the beginning of 58%. So performance and productivity is going to be very much directly linked to emotions and the practical physical circumstances people find themselves in right now. When you're sent home to work with 24 hours or 48 hours notice with no dress rehearsal, we haven't ironed out the crinkles and the wrinkles in our team yet to cope with distance working, remote working. If your company was going to do remote working consciously, you would have had a 3 to 6 month trial. We had no such luxury here. So that's why I said right at the beginning, we haven't sharpened that saw yet, but we will. Given a little bit of time, we will. We'll get really good at this. But right now, the adrenaline is running high. We've got highs and lows. I'd also like to say that we need to choose our words and we need to choose our language. We could choose the language of war and being a warrior and being at war against this virus. Somehow I find that language kind of so negative and disempowering. I would rather say to my family and to my team, we're explorers in a new world. And we really are, because we are kind of sitting at the edge of all we know. It's like being Christopher Columbus sitting at the edge of the ocean when he set off for the Americas, having an inkling of where he might be going, but not really knowing. I think that we find ourselves in that space right now. So we're explorers heading off into a new world. And we're going to have to make it up as we go. We're going to have to think our way through this. We're going to have to feel our way through this as well. And that means that we need to be curious, just like an explorer. For me, curiosity is the antidote to fear. Right now, there's a lot of fear. At home, at work, in the world. The entire world is immobilized right now. And in order to overcome the fear, we have to get very, very curious about this new adventure. So that's why I'm saying, be curious, be an explorer. Wake up every day and wonder, how might today surprise me? And when you go to bed at night before you, and I think this is worth journaling, how did today surprise me? And I can honestly tell you that I have lived like this for the last 2.5 years, of waking up every day going, well, I've never been here before. I've never been a widow. I've never been without my husband in 28 years. I've never been without my husband. I've never lived in this place before. Everything about my life has changed, just like your life has changed. But I started getting curious. I wonder how today might surprise. And then at the end of the day, jotting down how the day did surprise me. And it's quite remarkable. That's when you start seeing all that stuff from the right-hand side of your collateral beauty, collateral damage exercise starts coming to fruition. You start really seeing the sparks in the ashes. And that makes it exciting to wake up every single day. And there's something about surprise and newness and an adventure, because I think so often we get into a rut. Right now you're being hauled out of any rut you might have been in, and that's not a bad thing. So we're on a journey of learning, of reinvention. Who are you? I was on this massive journey for the last 2.5 years. Who am I without my husband Simon? Who are you right now going through COVID-19, now that everything is morphing and changing around you? What can I do differently today? How can I do something differently? Do it in a way that has never been done before. If there was ever a time for breaking rules, for doing things differently, for trying new things, it's now. It's now. The world will be very forgiving if it doesn't work out right now. So try stuff. Be brave. Be bold. Try stuff. I'm going to share my screen with you again. See if we can get back into that PowerPoint. The self-mastery during the perfect storm, because I do think we're sitting with a perfect storm right now. And now I want to deal with the third part of my presentation, which is the COVID-19 parenting paradox. So this is such an interesting space to be in. In the many, many years that I have been talking to parents, everybody has said to me who works full-time, the complaint is the same. Nikki, we wish we had more time with our children, more quality time with our children. We only see our children 2 to 3 hours a day, and none of that is quality time. That's just ferrying them around and feeding them and doing homework and putting them to bed and getting them dressed. That's not quality time. We wish we had more time. And now, by some bizarre twist of fate, here we are with our children for 24 hours a day. And now parents are coming to me saying, but we don't know what to do with all this time. And we feel so guilty about our work. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're a high-performance individual who has high expectations of yourself, which is why you're surviving and how you've built your business. And we give 1,000%, not 100%. Our 100% is everybody else's 1,000%. And now we don't know what to do with our children. Isn't that interesting? So this section is to help you with dealing with your children right now, no matter how old or young they are. So understand first and foremost that we need to take responsibility for creating a safe container of emotional connection for our children. And that means family is the vehicle. And family is whatever family is to you right now. Whether you are a one-parent, one-child family, 2 parents, 2 children, or a big blended family. Whether you have stepchildren, ex-husbands, ex-wives, we all have to make it happen because we are like the weather. We set the emotional temperature for our children, for our families. We are the weatherman. And family is where hope lives. I've written an entire book on this called Future-Proof Your Child for the 2020s and Beyond, a guide for parenting through disruptive times. And that came out in August 2019 and would be a really good resource for you right now. Building your family brand is critical. What are your rituals, your family rituals? Are you eating dinner around a dinner table right now? Good time to be doing it if you've never done it before. Are you inviting your children in to do the chores? That is a togetherness opportunity. Not only that, but a huge learning opportunity. Chores help our children to develop competence and confidence. And if you've never let your children help with the chores before, now is the time. If they can come out of COVID-19 with confidence and competence and life skills that help them live independently, help them be resourceful and resilient, you will have done a fantastic job whether you get through the formal curriculum or not. 80% of what your children really need to know to survive in life, they learn from you through the hidden curriculum. As parents, we are the hidden curriculum. And the X factors for success, which include things like creativity, innovation, thinking outside the box, loving learning for your whole life. You need to help your children maintain a love of learning through COVID-19. Being part of a team, online and offline, and your children are experiencing both of those online, offline situations right now because of distance learning and their friends being now online, not in real life. And then knowing themselves really well and being resilient and resourceful. Those are the X factors that an employer one day is going to say, showcase for me a time when you were innovative, resilient, resourceful, knew yourself really well. Show me how you manage your own love of learning. Do you manage your own learning journey, or do you only learn things when you're told to? So this is all very important stuff that I think COVID-19, having our children in our orbit, actually gives us the opportunity to observe those things in our children and to give them, create opportunities for them to develop and build on those X factors for success. Right, then the second point here is routine and boundaries. Routine and boundaries is essential on any normal day, let alone COVID-19. We need to have a routine, a beginning of the day and an end of the day. Your children need this, and so do you. A regular wake-up time, a regular go-to-sleep time. And that is like having a bookend on either side of the day. It's so easy when we're all at home to just not have a regular awake time. But we really do need that. It helps children feel safe and secure, and a routine provides structure and purpose for the day. You also need a routine for your family so that you can get work done. So between the wake up and the go to bed time, there are meal times. So now we have the backbone of our day. And if you have children under the age of 7, and you want to get any deep work done, you are going to have to do it when they are asleep. I'm an entrepreneur. I've run my own business for 25 years. I have raised children during that time. Any deep, uninterrupted work that I've done has happened before they wake up in the morning or after they've gone to bed at night. When I've interviewed other entrepreneurs who've built businesses from home as well, it's exactly the same. Your day is long. Just understand, to get 60 to 90 minutes of unbroken, uninterrupted time, you're going to have to do it when they are asleep. And then in between, especially if your children are under the age of 7, you might get 10 minutes or 15 minutes of uninterrupted time. You're going to have to use screen time judiciously. I know that you've probably all doubled or tripled your screen time right now, which is completely understandable. But try and use it when you need your children to not interrupt you. Use it for that time when you have the all-important webinar that you need to not have any interruptions over that time. Swap that time. I can't be with you right now. This is your TV time while I am on this webinar. And then you need to build in some moments of connection in order to fill your children's emotional cups for 10 minutes either side of having, say, an hour of time when you can't be with them. And that might be stopping and eating lunch with them. Well, what a gift if you never had lunch with your children before. What about, and I'm going to send you this, being a source of magic, wonder, and surprise. Children from about the age of 3 through to 12 love it when we do something a little bit out of the ordinary. I'm going to send you a link for some Boredom Busters, craft activities, cooking activities, science activities, and how to create games out of nothing. This is an exercise in resourcefulness because you're just going to use what you have at home. And your children will love it because it positions you as a hero. Switch off your phone, switch off your computer, and for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, just be fully present with your children, doing something that excites them, something that will stimulate their curiosity. Children are natural, curious learners. You don't have to teach them how to learn. You don't have to teach them to be curious, but you need to create a rich environment that helps keep them curious and keep them on the learning track. For some children right now, learning online is not easy. For other children who found learning in a classroom difficult, they're finding online learning easy. For the child who was the introvert, they might now be the child who is volunteering information in an online forum. We are all so different. We all have our own individual fingerprint. So what can we discover over this time? We can learn how to be more realistic and productive in a work from home situation. We are learning the work from home skills, and we're not good at them yet unless you've been doing this for a very long time. We're going to learn how truly teachable we are. I mean, on my side, I spent the first 3 weeks really mastering Zoom so that I could offer everything that I do online. And it was working fabulously until every financial institution said to me, we can't use Zoom. And now I've learned about 7 other different platforms. I've had to be flexible and I've had to be resilient. But I've discovered just how teachable I really am. And we're going to prove our adaptability. We're going to prove our flexibility. And that's a good thing moving forward because this world is disruptive. We were in for disruption anyway. Now it's just happening on a mass scale. We're going to improve our self-awareness, our consciousness, our ability to reframe and to keep perspective. So those exercises I showed you in that first slide are very, very important. And most importantly, to learn how to give your energy leadership and direction. This is truly, truly important, that you need to be the master of your own energy and get in touch with who you are and who your children are, and parent a whole lot more consciously probably than you have ever parented before. In terms of mental and emotional health, I would really advise that you limit your family's exposure to the news. It's really easy to leave news channels on 24/7, but it's so depressing. Even if you have young children, they will get the meaning behind the words, even if they don't understand the words. And in fact, all those images of hospitals and people in hazmat suits and masks and protests and things, it's a little bit like a dystopian nightmare. A dystopian drama coming to a village or a town or a city near you. So just be very, very aware that these things can hijack us emotionally, and we need to limit our exposure to them. Keep calm, manage your own anxiety, listen to your children and answer their questions, and don't interrupt them, and thank them for their input. And please explain the plan to them. And please, please do not get them set on a particular date or a deadline. If they are school-going children, say to them, you'll be going back to school at some time, but I'm not sure when. Might be next week, but it might be in 2 months' time. We're going to have to play this by ear. We don't have full control of this situation. Routine is going to be important for your mental sanity, as is sleep. Get as much sleep as you can. And of course, exercise is truly important, and staying connected with as many people as possible. Your children miss their friends, and they really miss their teachers too. I know we started a little late, so I'm on the last couple of minutes of my presentation. So gratitude is something that is very, very important, that we all need to experience and acknowledge what we're grateful for. A strong and healthy body, doctors and nurses who look after us, caring schools, teachers who teach our children, the food we have to eat, the roof over our heads. How about being grateful for utilities like water, electricity, and connectivity? I'm eternally grateful for connectivity, and you already saw today how we lost connectivity for a few minutes, and that can be a complete, total, and utter nightmare at this time of our lives. We are very, very dependent on connectivity. So we need to keep calm and focused and take one baby step at a time. Remember that you are the captain of your ship. So I'm going to be sharing some resources with you to help you win at work and life. You're going to get a download of the Keep Your Business Running Through COVID-19 white paper that's got a lot of information for you and your teams. Please share it as widely as you can. It might just save a business, or save a family's sanity over this time. You will get a download of the Sweets and the Sours game, which is something that you can play at the dinner table every night. And if you run a team, it is very valuable and useful for a team meeting to share. First round is something negative that happened to me today, and it made me feel like this. So whatever was the negative thing and how it made you feel. And the second round is a positive round. So once everyone's done the negative, then you go around the table again and everybody says something positive. It's an opportunity for everybody to be seen and heard. It is not a conversation. There is no right of reply. A very powerful tool in testing the emotional temperature of your family or your team right now. And you can do it every day with your children. We started this when my son was 4.5 years of age. I thought he'd be too young, but he wasn't. Then you are going to get the Boredom Busters link, and there are enough activities there to keep you busy for the next couple of probably months, not just weeks, and they're really fun. And then you'll get a link to the Collateral Damage versus Collateral Beauty Challenge, and I'm also regularly posting new podcasts every single week. There's a fantastic one that you need to go and listen to. I've alluded to the fact that we are going through trauma, loss, and grief. Please go and listen to the interview I did with Derek Jackson, and that'll take you through the 7 stages of adjustment and transition that we have to make, whether we are going through a positive change or a negative change. We are human beings. We go through different life phases and life stages, and these 7 stages apply to everything, and it will also help you to gain perspective. Now, what I'd like to do is redo this poll. Once again, it's the same poll. So I want you to go to the poll tab, and I want you to say right now how you are feeling to see if there has been a shift. How are you feeling right now? So I can, Brent, can you launch that poll? I'm not sure if it's been launched. Brent, have you launched that poll? Joe, thank you for your message. Matthew, can you hear me? And is that poll live? I'm not hearing you, Matthew. Can you all still hear me? Can somebody put in the chat if you can still see and hear me? No poll. Okay, right. Oh, there it is. The poll is now live. It's the same poll as before, and I'd like you to please do the poll again. Wow, everybody. Wow, 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 wow. That's amazing. Well, thank you for taking that poll again. I really, really appreciate you doing that. And I just want to say to you, this is the power we have when we have a guide alongside, when we talk to people, when we share with people. And Bianca, I love the word you've just used there of this has been grounding. You see, what can happen to us when we're in a negative situation is that we can get so caught up in our own little bubble that we can't see the wood for the trees. And that then becomes this little fear cycle, and we get caught up in this glitter storm. I like to call it a glitter storm. And we don't allow the glitter to settle. And this is a beautiful analogy that I'd like to leave you with today, is that we all find ourselves in a glitter storm right now. And we need to allow our glitter time to settle. Even go and make a glitter jar with your kids. A teaspoon of glitter into a jar of water. Give it a good shake. Get your kids to take turns. And I want you to observe how the glitter gradually settles, okay? That's what happens when we start dealing with our emotions and allowing them time to settle. Identify them, go there, don't ignore them. Identify those emotions, but give them time to settle. Give them space to settle because they always do. They always do. And we actually go through glitter storms on a daily basis. Every day. We just haven't identified the fact that we have lots of traumas and little losses every day. If you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, you go through trauma and loss often because you have an idea, you try it, it doesn't work. There's a loss. You've got to give it away. You've got to grieve it. You've got to pick up and you've got to carry on and try something else. We are all in that space now. We've got to keep trying new things. So the way I'd like to end is to say, remember the comma and ... analogy, okay? And you have the power to reframe this moment as a comma, not a full stop. Please keep walking, taking baby steps, just like Johnny Walker says, keep walking. Try not to drink too much whiskey while you're doing it, but keep walking, keep moving forward. Keep talking to important people in your life. Find a mentor, find a coach, keep working through whatever's coming up for you right now, because you will then have more emotional energy to fill the cups of your team members, your employees, and your family at home. Keep connecting in whatever way, shape, or form that you can. And I'd like to share a quote with you to end. And it's a quote from Anais Nin, and it says, "Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage." I have changed it up by adding one very important word, and that is this: life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage and curiosity. Please be curious. Thank you very much. Guys, I'm here. I've got about another 10 minutes. I can be online. If anybody has some questions, you're most welcome to pop them into this chat window, and I'm very happy to answer them for you. So if there are no questions, I will sign off. But please know you can get hold of me, info@nikkibush.com. I also run these sessions for businesses. I've got a number of different webinars and resources for you, so you can always engage with me as a corporate or an SMME, and I would be happy to work with you and your team. So thank you very much, and I hope that it's given you some food for thought and that you are energized for the rest of Friday, not just Friday, but for whatever we are going to be facing moving forward. Thank you so much.